okay, what do I want to charge for this? And like thinking about negotiating. I think every time you build an offer, you might go through a little bit of this. Um, but this topic of negotiation ties back to what we were just talking about. So I mean, I don't think there's anybody on the call yet, but we all got invited to basically participate in a creator panel, and we're talking about like negotiating what we would want to be compensated for to give our time to that. Um, and I think, oh shit, I feel like I'm losing my point now.
It was basically, I think Mike basically was making like, I think they offered Mike like $100, and then somehow Mike stonewalled them. Could you tell what you did, Mike?
Oh, yes. Okay, I got it. I totally remembered it now. So, when they offered me less and I knew what they were paying you, I basically said that I would do it for the same amount that you were. I didn't say like what you're paying Mike, but I was like, oh, I'll do it for this much because I knew that's what they were paying you. And the way that they countered that was like, no, we're only paying this flat rate for everybody. And so right away I was like, well, I know that's not true. But then they tried to say like, well, and you can also earn a lot by promoting the product. And I had asked you, Mike, the other day, I was like, hey, do you use this software? Like, are you a user of it? Because I personally, I felt like an immediate like resistance thinking about promoting a product to my audience that I've never used.
Sure.
Like I just don't think that I want to. I think I would feel like a sellout to be like, "Oh, you guys, like here's my code for this tool. You guys should all use it." I don't know what the fuck it is, you know?
Yeah. So yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
By the way, on that subject, which is a little bit of a tangent, but like, yeah, with any sort of product promotions and stuff like this, like just to add on to that, even if you've used a product a little bit, right, and you like certain aspects of it, promoting it is like, unless you've like used it thoroughly, sometimes it's still not a good idea to promote a certain product, because sometimes the deeper you get into a certain tool, you realize like it does have a lot of flaws in this, right? So yeah, I can definitely understand that. So is that this is so bad, but is that what's going on with this thing, with this roundtable, where you're going to help them sell the product through it, or is it people attending the event that you get paid for?
I can forward you the docs that they sent me because I assume that they will eventually send them to you as well. But it basically kind of broke down the different types of compensation that you can get from it, because there's an upfront amount that they pay you just for participating. And then they, I guess, give you your own affiliate code so that if you are making posts promoting the event, you can be like plugging that affiliate code. And then they pay you, I think it's 40% of anybody who subscribes to the software through you. And then there is an additional referral incentive where, like, based on the amount of people you bring to the event, you could earn an extra amount. So if you bring, I think it was like, if you bring 50 people, you get an extra 100 or something. And if you bring 100 people, you get an extra amount. So there's different kinds of incentives baked in. But it just like immediately got me thinking yesterday. I was like, well, I would completely like, in my mind, I wouldn't even plan to earn any affiliate commissions for promoting this tool because I've never used it. So yeah. I wouldn't push that to my audience, being that I didn't even know what it was.
I have a Riverside FM referral code because I've used that product for years and I stand by it. I like it. I'll do ones like that, but even their referral system's like a little weird the way it works. But if it's a good product, I'll totally do it. But from a marketing perspective, I think what they're doing is pretty brilliant, tapping into other creators' networks and then using them somehow to get in front of them to push their product. That's like having their own like sales team almost that are already in these markets. So it's pretty brilliant strategy what they're doing.
Yeah, I wonder how they'll do that, if they'll just like drop a little ad or something in the middle of the roundtable.
Well, I think they give you a bunch of stuff beforehand. Like they'd said that, you know, we'd expect you to promote the event and we'll give you creative for it. And I haven't seen it obviously, but I've been in the loops of events like these before where you have affiliates and stuff pushing it. And I think it can work if somebody has a really big audience, but I think I just want to be really careful of being promoty with things. And by like, if they give us creative that they're like, hey, we want you to share this. If it's like just something that you would never normally post, you just kind of consider that like, okay, do I want to push this to my audience, or would I just write my own post about the event? You know?
As long as it focuses more on the fact that it's a round table and like doesn't look like just an advertisement for a product, then I think that I think that I think it works, and I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So
but
let's
yeah,
talk
if
a
it's
little
too
bit.
product heavy,
Let's talk a little bit about offers, because before the call too, we were talking about like how a lot of people that we see on Substack might not be making their first $1,000 yet, and they're really good writers, but for whatever reason, you could tell that they just haven't made that leap yet. If you were, I know Mike, you've been at it for longer, like you've been making money for over 10 years, kind of in entrepreneurship. But how would you guys think about this to make that first thousand? Like if you were in that position where you needed to make money somewhat fast and like you didn't want to commoditize yourself, and like, would you DM people on, or would you build an audience? Or like, what's the fastest way to like cash?
I think the fastest
um,
way is to do free work. Like,
So counterintuitive.
yeah, I mean, I
Yep.
talked about this on the last call, and
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off there, Mike. I'll
no worries.
give you the
I said
floor after. Yeah, I think like obviously if you're trying to make your first thousand, then like taking the time to build an audience is gonna take longer, especially if you're doing it organically. Um, so I think if like we were all talking about a writer that we all know on Substack, he's got like 800 followers, and he's posting a lot of like really vulnerable parts of sharing his journey, and we all said like he's a great writer. So if that guy, like sometimes we have these skills that we just don't know how we could monetize, and I think that for me, the quickest way to take skills I had learned and make money with them was just to start offering it as a service to people for free and see myself get some results and then be like, okay, so I made a bit of a difference in this person's business. I think the next person that I talk to about this, I now have like a solid case study to lean on, and I'll just ask for a bit of money. And then the next person after that, I'll ask for a bit more. And then that's how you grow an offer, but I think you have to just start putting it out there first if you're in that like 0 to first 1,000.
Yeah, 100%. What about your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, actually, interestingly, I wrote an email about this one time, and I basically broke it down to like saying that there's basically like two, maybe three ways to break in to like let's say it's a service based business, right? Um, to break into that, it's like yeah, number one, I'd say what Kelsey said in terms of doing free work, right? The second though would be building a brand first, and it is an option. Like interestingly, that's actually the way that I've always done it, which might be a little bit surprising. But what I've always just done, kind of either instinctively or it's just the way it worked out, is I've always built a brand first and then used the brand as leverage to land clients, and that can work. I'd say that also works particularly well if you're doing any sort of content marketing service, any sort of like audience growth service. But it's kind of like you become your first case study, right? And you are sort of like proof that you can do that you can help people grow their brand, build an audience, and that kind of thing, right? But the third option is really actually just combining the two, which would
Oh no.
I think
did
you
I
kind of,
disappear? Can you
Yeah,
there-
Okay.
he's back. Oh,
You can still hear me though, right?
yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, the Wi-Fi is not the absolute greatest here, but let's see. Okay, so then the third option would basically be a hybrid where you build an audience, but you also do a bit of free work. Because the free work is still one of the best ways to show that you can do it, right? Like aside from just building your own brand, but just and I recommend like helping somebody in your network, not like cold DMing people, asking complete strangers like can I run this service for you? Because I just feel like you're going to get a much better response if you look to your own network, as opposed to strangers. Because like, why are they going to trust you to help them like build a brand or whatever your service is?
How many like followers do you, if you're a ghostwriting service and you're new, how many followers do you think you would need as a brand, like 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, in order to like get like how many do you need to do to I guess have people trust that you know what you're doing?
That's a good question. I was actually going to ask Mike his thoughts on this because you said like you should build a brand first, but I think that can be ambiguous to people. Like what benchmark means that you have a brand, you know?
Yeah, and it's something that's definitely obviously it's a perspective thing, right? But I feel like around 1,000 followers, even like people start to take you a little more seriously. It's it definitely is a thing though. You can tell like you from my experience, you get less inbound leads and stuff like when you're I'd say it tends to get better and better as you hit milestones like 5,000, 10,000. It's a social proof thing, right? Especially with growth offers like this, like ghostwriting, where a lot of these people want to grow a brand. It might be different if you're like a Facebook ads guy or an SEO guy, although I feel like the same thing applies too. Like if you're the SEO guy with 5,000 followers or 10,000 or 25,000, like people take you pretty seriously because it's like, oh, this guy must be that guy in SEO if he's got 25,000 followers, right? So it tends to be something that does get better and better, at least for like inbounds, and probably also with or definitely also in terms of cold outreach as well, because like the social proof, right? I think that like I could count the number of like rude responses I've gotten, say on LinkedIn from cold outreach, probably on like one or two hands. And we've done like a lot of outreach. So and probably actually just one hand to be honest. And if I was a smaller account, maybe I would have gotten more rude responses because it's like, who is this? Who is this? Like nobody, right? I can just be like rude to this person. Whereas like you show up with 20,000, it's like, if I'm rude to this person, I don't know, maybe it comes with a risk. Maybe this person is connected or whatever, right? But yeah. So
One mistake
Yeah.
I made as a new creator was not doing outbound at all. Like I kind of had that idea of like build the audience and it will come or whatever. And I'm getting close to 10K on LinkedIn, and I do get inbound leads, and it all does work together with all the different platforms that I'm on. But I would say that there's no like if you really want to grow fast, I'm realizing that I gotta like go outbound at least like 10 DMs a day if I can. Like that's kind of like the idea, but I think that I don't know. Some people might only get inbound, but I think that the combination of both is really valuable.
Yeah. I think to your point, Mike, like there is a perception that followers is like it's a status perception, right? So people are a lot less likely to ignore you or be rude to you if you've got 20,000 followers because it shows a bit of status. It shows a bit of authority right from the get-go. And I think to your point, the best way to do it is to do a hybrid where like you are building your brand in public and you're building your brand using your free work. Like I feel like this is where I overlook this. And I think a lot of new people overlook it because you tell yourself that like, if you don't have paid clients and you don't have any testimonials to talk about, and it's just not fucking true. You have so many stories that you could talk about. You have so many lessons that you're learning along the way, and like even if you get a free client and you bomb for them, there's something that you learn from that that can be a story that you can talk about in your brand. So I think people get really caught in like the whole chicken and the egg thing of like, well, I can't build a brand until I have stories to tell, and I don't have any stories to tell because I don't have paid client. Then it's just like a negative story that they're telling themselves, and you need to just break out of that and be willing to build in public and build a brand using all that work you're putting in.
So the kid that we're and I call everybody who's under the age of like 25 a kid. The kid that we were talking about where he's writing about like literally still work. He's like working at the grocery store and all this, and like hasn't made his first dollar online, and he's being like super honest about it and super vulnerable, right? Well, it's funny you just said like people feeling like they don't have stories to tell and stuff, and it's like I'd say he's a pretty good example of like even if you even if you don't know what service you're offering yet.
Oh no.
I think he cut out there for a second, so we'll continue on for a second until. Oh, there he is.
Oh,
Oh,
He's back.
he's back.
He's back.
oh my God. Um, yeah, like even if you don't have your service yet, you have life stories. You have what you're going through right now as well, right? So yeah, he's a good example of that. So everybody definitely has stories to tell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's not telling anything crazy. He's like, I'm working at a grocery store and I want my mom to see that I'm a writer to get the first check. And to me, I'd rather hear shit like that than someone making 8 figures or whatever, because it's just not relatable to me. Like when someone's just so ahead. So I think that there is like we all have stories. It's just about learning like how to be vulnerable, I suppose, and like which ones to show. I always like to look at it like trauma dumping is like when you're like in that situation and you haven't processed it. But like I talk a lot about like getting fired and breaking my jaw like in like the same day, and then getting like a year later becoming a full time creator. So I think that that's like if you've processed the information in my eyes, it has a more powerful arc. But at the same time, if like wherever you're at, like don't be as scared as that guy is doing to show with where you're at that moment. Even if it feels like you're signaling low status, people respect that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's the difference between like just trauma dumping versus like, hey, here's what happened, here's what I learned from it. I think there's a way to be like growth minded with it where you're kind of like taking people along for the journey. You're not just being like, hey, here's what sucked about my day today. And I think I was going to say something else, but I got distracted by
It's
Kyle's
coming.
funny comment. Yeah, it'll come back to me if it's important.
My first sort of work was free too. Like I launched a podcast for someone for free, right? When I started off, and this guy ended up creating like a radio show in Australia, and now works on a radio show. And it was crazy to me because it I always think that too, like the results really I find come from the people that really want the work. Like you can't really teach someone to like want something or be hungry or like to show up or so like that's another thing I think is like as you're newer, like figuring out who to prospect to. If someone's like doesn't believe in content writing or doesn't have any posts on the timeline, that's gonna be a lot more of a struggle to get them to like buy into writing daily than it is it's someone that's already writing all the time or whatever, or has a ghostwriter that understands like the value. So I think Eugene Schwartz talks about that in like levels of like market awareness. So I always try to think about like what is the market awareness? And for me personally, I look at people that are like, all right, I see that they have 10,000 followers, but they have no video. So clearly to me, that's some sort of like psychological problem, right? Because why wouldn't you be on video if you had that amount of followers? Why wouldn't you take like every avenue that you can in every channel? So I think it's just finding, for me, it's just like reverse engineering, like the ones that are the easiest and the lowest hanging fruit.
You were telling me about your like outreach strategy,
Yeah.
and you're telling me about the first message that you send,
Yeah.
and it was so simple, your actual approach, and I was
Yeah.
like, man, I love that. Like I gotta start doing that because I'm like making mine all this whole like personalization thing where you go and you find maybe something about their company, you find something about like, oh, okay, they live in like San Francisco or something. So you're gonna be like, you might reference San Francisco. It's like, oh my God. So it does come across as kind of like faux personalization, like you're trying too hard to personalize it, right? And I don't
Yeah.
like how complex that is in comparison to yours, where it's just like, hey, yours was something like, hey, notice that you have like this large audience, or you're pretty active on LinkedIn. I'm just kind of curious, like why. Correct me if
Yeah.
I'm wrong here, but it's like why you haven't, why you're not doing video right now. Is that what
Yeah.
it was?
Pretty much. And normally I'm not trying to over explain to them like why like video is important. I just assume that they know that if they already have like an audience. Cause I'm kind of like, okay, so that's kind of something that I'll have to say, right? So then I'm just like, all right, if you have this audience, like let me help you make a video. And then I'll actually look at a post, be like, hey, I just saw that you went to a conference down in Austin. Let's make a post about that and do a little story. Or your founder story about how you started, a little story arc, and we'll make it in Riverside, make it super easy, caption it, and then just give me a review. And the review part of it, it's also good because it releases psychological stress from them, because then it's like they don't feel like I'm like trying to like catch them. And then my process is, all right, I do the clip, I schedule, pro tip, always schedule your next call when they're on the call, because don't let something get loose and then become like all over the place. So then you schedule the next call, get on the call with them, be like, here's the clip. Hey, I can make a month's worth of video content shorts for you for a month, making it easy with only 2 hours of your time. Eliminating the performance psychology, because I used to hang out with pro snowboarders. So I know psychology very well. And I know like fucking how to get in the right moment and how to pull it out of you, essentially. So I think from them, it's just like, all right, like, why wouldn't I do that? It's kind of like one of those things, like, if this guy's going to go make it super easy for me. And I think what I'm doing is pretty blue ocean too, because I don't really know a lot of people that are doing specifically what I'm doing. Besides, there might be like a couple other people, but Kelsey's doing something kind of similar. I would suppose it's probably somewhat related. And I actually thought about like what we're doing now as like a bonus to someone, right? So imagine like you have a client and they're not on video, and like you're ghostwriting for them. Be like, hey, I'll also go live with you on Substack for a half hour once a month. We'll connect this thing to YouTube, and then YouTube becomes like the testing engine where it'll validate what ideas are good, what ideas are bad, so that we know what to focus on when we're actually building out these videos. So
Mhm.
like I look at this like what we're doing now almost like as a validation engine on ideas, because if it all the posts go to YouTube and we could measure which ones do the best, we can go and go, okay, that topic hit, that topic's validated. It's not like we're guessing anymore. It's like it is a validation system. And I actually got a lot of people. Someone actually was talking a lot of shit to me the other day on Substack, trying to like come at me, and I had to block him, because he was like just saying, "Oh, like you're creating, what are you creating? Slop and da 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 da. Like your push to YouTube without you actually doing the videos is fucking sloppy. And you're creating all this morph bullshit into the world." And I was just like, to each his own. This is about using technology to our advantage. It'd be slop if like we were just like writing random things and then just shipping it out. This is actually real conversations, and the AI, all it's doing is just picking what it likes out of our conversations. It's a big difference. But you have
Yeah,
a lot of these purists that get a little
that's
crazy.
not really like the best example of slop. I can think of like 1,000 other things that are more AI slop than that before I would talk about videos that are, yeah, an AI did like, splice together the clips in a certain way and stuff, but it's still humans speaking in front of a you know, on video, right? So it's the opposite of slop. But yeah, was that on a note or
It
what?
was on a note. He came at me and I had to block him. Then I looked at his thing, and
Yeah.
he had like Hitler on his page. I was like, oh, this guy's a fucking weirdo. Like, I don't have time for this shit. And like at the very beginning, like it might have like pissed me off. I gave him an honest answer back. I said, look, dude, it's about finding the signal before you actually invest time like in a longer form video on which ones that actually connect. So I don't know. I don't know if you guys ever block people, but that's like certain people I'm just like, fuck you, dude. I don't have time for your negativity.
Yeah, I think somebody like that though, I mean, I feel like as much as we all say that, like, ignore the trolls and ignore the haters and whatever, there's definitely some people that just like pull your attention sometime and you're like, "Oh, do I want to put in the energy to respond to this person, or are they just so far beyond me trying to ration with them?" Because somebody like that, I would guess that that guy, there's something there that you're making him feel, whether it's like envy or there's some kind of insecurity that what you're doing was bringing out in him, and he was taking it out on you by basically trying to belittle what you're doing and say that it's not good. But anybody who's like really invested in making good content knows that, yeah, like, even if AI does play a part in it, what we all do in, like, interviewing our client, or and especially, like, with what you and I are working on, Jer, where, like, we're interviewing our client live on video and trying to ask really thoughtful questions that evoke good responses out of them. By doing it that way, you can use AI as a tool without relying on AI to make the content. Because, like, this is something I've realized in building my offer, and even just, like, taking a long form video and trying to turn it into short form clips is
Hard.
the quality of clips that you get is kinda dependent on how good of a question you ask. Because if you ask a really, really thoughtful, really well-worded question, you're more likely to get a response that doesn't need a lot of AI intervention. But I think what you're doing is really smart in that, like, we're having these conversations where I think our conversations are always really thoughtful and people seem to get value out of them. And we know that AI is just going to take pieces of that and go push it onto a platform without you needing to carve time out of your day to do it. So
Yeah.
anybody who's like, a business owner that wants to see other people succeed and they know content would probably look at what you're doing and be like, fuck yeah, man. But this guy's choosing to
Well,
get
he's looking
defensive
at
about it.
he's looking at it as he's looking at my note as a platform for him to talk about AI purity. And there's a lot of this going on the platform about like I only write like without AI. I never use AI. It's just purely I'm like Buddhist and I'm on a fucking cliff smoking weed and it just came to me at that second. I would never use AI. There's this kind of conversation going on and to me, I'm always going to use technology to my advantage. If I can get another 3 or 4 hours out of my day by using technology, I'm going to use it.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, it's still me writing off every single post, every single video, whatever. Like I look at this thing as a testing ground. I don't look at that. Like I knew that when these things were going, and I think you have it set up too to auto post to YouTube, but I knew that there was a lack of control there. And a lot of people do not like it when they don't have control. But I kind of just said, fuck it. Like, you know what? There's not going to be any control on this. But like Mike said earlier, like we have real conversations. We're doing real shit. This isn't like made up bullshit that like, that we're twisting into hallucinations that AI is making and then pushing out. That's not what this is.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing, like, couple things. Okay. Yeah, it might also push out a short that actually is shitty. Okay. Like, yeah, because it might take one that it thinks is good, but like it didn't really have a lot of substance or whatever. And it's just not the best clip. Right. So it is what it is. That probably won't be a top performer, but some of the other ones where it did a better job will cut through. But something I was thinking about is that like Substack, you can it's interesting because it will feel like a very tight-knit community. I was actually thinking about that last night. Like there's kind of like an unspoken circle that I've sort of noticed. It's like people, there's people like me, you, Jeremy, Kelsey. Then there's people like, Jack W, another ghostwriter. I think he's on this call right here. There's this other guy, Peter, Reginella. And then there's other like ghostwriters, copywriters, people like people kind of in that space, maybe freelancers, creators, and the circle kind of gets like wider and wider. But then like Substack is a huge like platform in terms of like different niches and what people are actually talking about on the platform. So like it doesn't surprise me at all that somebody found your note and you're in like the creator space, but that person was probably talking about like that person probably hates AI. Like there's a lot of people out there who absolutely hate AI. Um, like I myself, believe it or not, a part of me does hate AI. Like because if you look, don't
Coming back.
like,
There we go.
I don't like a lot of it. Right? It's like it if it goes to where it could, then it is like stripping like actual humans of like jobs and art and all this stuff, right? So yeah, you just made it over to another circle on Substack, which is like you're not in creator space anymore. And like you made it over to another circle where they hate AI and hate a lot of other things associated with it too. So
So this makes me want to comment back because somebody asked earlier, Patient Zero, great name, asked, "Do you guys believe in no such thing as bad press or not?" I think this actually ties to like whether or not you should like get in the weeds of engaging with people who just seem like they're trying to shit on you. Because I think it's like a case by case thing, and I think that also applies with like no such thing as bad press. I think that in marketing, like the whole no such thing as bad press definitely exists because visibility is visibility and visibility is valuable. But I think the way that I see it, and obviously in the grand scheme of things, I have a very small brand, but like we were talking, I don't know if Patient Zero was on when we were talking about this, but we were all talking at the beginning of the call of joining a panel, like an event that we've all been invited to. And one of the things they asked of is to promote their product. And I was like, well, I don't know that I would want my brand to promote a product that I've never used. So that I think kind of ties into this idea of like, is there such thing as bad press? It's not necessarily bad press in that scenario at all, but it's like inauthentic press. So I think I think as you like the longer you are online, the more time you spend building a brand online, the more I think picky and like conscious you become of like what you want to associate your brand with and what other business owners you want to be like closely associated with. Just because I think making content, Jeremy, you and I have talked about this before. I think making content makes you kind of realize like what you're willing to stand for and what arguments you're willing to stand by and what like maybe polarizing takes you are willing to stand by because trolls are going to come and people are going to call you on it and it kind of makes you think like yeah, what do I want my brand to be associated with? Like what do I want to stand for? What
Yeah.
is, not so great press for me?
Yeah. It's also kind of like why you probably don't want to be polarizing just for the sake of being polarizing. Especially if you don't like believe the things that you're actually saying. But there is a flip side to that too, because you could be making like a satire post. You could be like being a little bit like tongue in cheek in this, and it's like it's meant to be satire, and it's like if people don't get it, then that's kind of like on them. But yeah, there is definitely such a thing as bad press. You can so you do want to think when you put out a post, like you want to think about the repercussions that could come with that. Like what will this probably do when it goes out there? Um it's it's interesting too, because I can give you a perfect example. And so patient zero, uh he follows me. I also like I subscribe to him as well, right? But he found me, and this almost might have been why he asked the question, maybe not, but he found me through a note that I did where I was kind of basically talking shit about anonymous accounts. And I was talking shit about anonymous accounts because I woke up in the morning, right? And there was this anon in my comment section talking shit, and it was just so out of left field. It was like kind of like Jeremy's thing, but it was like worse than that. Like the guy I just put out a very like top of funnel kind of like fluffy like content piece. Very sort of like with like kind of like that mass appeal thing, a little bit more broader than I would normally go. And this guy's like talking shit in the comments. He's just totally he's anonymous, right? So I was just thinking to myself, it's always these fucking anons who want to talk so much shit, right? Of course, because they're not showing their face, right? So so I just wrote that, right? But here's the thing. Like it turned into this whole like people taking my words and kind of I mean, I felt like they were almost like intentionally misinterpreting what I was saying because they turned it into like there's obviously a lot of problems going on in the world right now. Okay, like there's in the UK they're pushing for like digital ID and all of that shit. So it's like there's actually like a legitimate threat of maybe people one day not even being able to use social media unless you have like digital ID and like unless you are showing your face and it's like completely verified and like tagged to you, which is like that is absolutely not what I want to happen. Like that is totally dystopian, tyrannical, all that. And it's hilarious because my words, like from basically talking shit about like trolls, it then became this whole thing where people like thought that I'm some sort of like tyrant or somebody who wants everybody with an anon account to be like thrown in jail or something like this. And it's like if these people knew who I actually am and what I actually stand for, like this conversation wouldn't be happening. But shit can get so misinterpreted. Like I'm talking about anonymous trolls. they think I'm talking about everybody with an Anon account. But it was like a 30 or 40 word post. And in 30 or 40 words, you can't even get into like half the nuance that exists on a given subject, right? So yeah, is such a thing as bad press? Absolutely. Because like that post, for example, that shit did nothing for my brand. Like aside from a couple cool people, I actually will say Patient Zero, he's a cool guy. I like his newsletter and that kind of thing. He's an example of a person where he kind of like ended up looking past what I had said in that 30 to 40 word post. We had a little bit of a conversation. And then he ended up subscribing to me. I subscribed to him and all was well there. But for every one person like the Patient Zero there, it's like there were like 10 or 10 or 20 other people who just like attacked me, right? So yeah, it was actually pretty brutal. So I've seen the other side of, well, I've seen just how deep Substack goes, and it's like there's a lot of corners out there on Substack, right? Like, we're kind of mostly in this like creator Substack, but man, it goes way deeper than that. There's people talking about every subject under the sun.
Yeah.
If you want to be polarizing, just talk about AI writing on sub. Is a question that kind of popped up in my mind.
This popped up when you were talking, Mike, because I'm not going to say what it was about, but Mike, I think a while back I sent you an article that I had written that I was like, this is really polarizing. This would piss a lot of people off, or at least we were talking about it. Because I was like, I have this opinion. I have all these experiences to kind of vouch for why I have this opinion. And I'll just say that it was along the lines of like, it was mental health related. And I was talking to Mike about it, and we got into some good conversations between us. But I also remember talking to Taylin about it, and he read the whole piece and he's like, yeah, this is really well thought out. It's really well written. But do you want your brand to stand for this? Like, is this worth writing about for you? Because it is going to piss people off. And if this isn't necessarily what you want your brand to stand for, then just know that it's okay to write great pieces and keep them to yourself. If you're, even just to like dissect what you think about something and to like break down those thoughts. But not every awesome piece you write necessarily has to be put out there to the public if it's not something that you want your brand to stand for. And I think that was really good advice. And I'm glad now that I didn't publish it. And not because like I am afraid of people knowing that opinion about me, just because I'm like, I don't know if I care enough to like have the haters come out. Like I have more important things in my life that I'm working towards, and this would just be like a dramatic distraction. And that's not me saying like this post would inevitably blow up, but like I've just learned that like you were just alluding to, Jeremy, like you kind of know after a while like what topics get people really heated and what topics get people offensive. Like one, I'll give you guys an example. I might have told you guys this story before, but it was like probably a couple years ago. I was learning a lot about like the psychology of money and like really just trying to like kind of unravel my own limiting beliefs about money. And I was also learning a lot about the public school system because I was writing an article on it, and I learned about like the history of the public school system and like why it is the way it is. And I think the public school system has a lot of flaws in like it's a bit of an outdated model that teaches people basically how to be employees because it's still very much the same as when we were trying to get people in factories. So anyway, I was really learning about these topics, and I made a post, and it was like a genuine curiosity for me. I was like, it's really interesting to me that we've kind of created a society where we almost teach people to like resent wealthy people instead of just like creating a system where we teach more people how to be wealthy.
Mhm.
Like, why is school not teaching us like, what to do with money, better financial literacy, emotional intelligence, like setting us up to have more wealthy people as opposed to creating this society of like wage disparity and like people who just kind of resent wealthier people. It was a genuine like this is me kind of exploring this topic. And people hated that. People came at me saying that I was so privileged for even asking this question. Somebody was like, "Oh, white girl telling everybody to like pull the bootstraps up. Like there are people who are really disadvantaged and you're privileged." And they just completely took what I said and twisted it in the most like malicious way. And like I did have a lot of people who like kind of came to my defense and they were like, "If you knew Kelsey, you would know that that's not what she was saying with this post." But it was like a lesson for me because I was like, "Oh, people, when they feel like what you're saying is, like, almost attacking their way of life in some way, they will sometimes, like, just come at you." And, that was one of those moments where it makes you think, like, "Am I willing to, like, stand by what I said, or do I wish I'd said it differently?" Yeah, maybe I learned something from that, but that it goes back to my point before that, like, you learn how to be polarizing with your content, but you also learn how to kind of be a little bit selective with which polarizing takes are like worth the energy for you.
You can put out stuff that's not even that polarizing and get under people's skin.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
looking at my Substack here. I'll give you a perfect example. I wrote a post the other day, and I kind of was speaking about how I was a musician in the past, and how like that time of my life was key for sort of like kind of disconnecting from the whole like the system, right? Whether we call that the corporate world or whatever. I had a lot of time to get away from that, right? Somebody commented on this newsletter,
Mhm.
read the first sentence and stopped. I don't respect musicians. They're all narcissistic assholes.
What the hell?
Like
That's
this is
fucking
somebody
mean.
just for me saying, yeah, I was a musician in my 20s or something like this. Uh,
Jeez.
like so even if you don't put out anything that's like polarizing, you're still gonna get
Hate.
haters. And this is like also there is a difference between LinkedIn and Substack. Like you could go for a year on LinkedIn and not get comments like this, right? It's just because it is such a corporate and professional platform, right? So yeah, we're playing a different game over here on Substack for sure. You have to get very good at realizing like a lot of people's comments like are just 100% about them. It's
Yeah.
like clearly this guy's projecting. I don't even know like okay, so all musicians are narcissistic assholes. So okay, tell me what did the bad musician man do to you? You know what I mean? Like
You probably wanted to be a musician and couldn't make it and just got jealous and attacked you. And your
yeah,
thing, I think your thing with the psychology of money, I thought that book was fascinating because it talks about like how if you grow up during a certain period, like the 70s, the 60s, and you invest in like the stock market, that you'll have much different returns. And a lot of it's based upon luck. So like even where you were born, all this shit, it's all kind of like luck. Like we're lucky to be born in the US and Canada, so it's just really interesting too. Now, I'm with you, Kelsey. I think that a lot of people have a bad relationship with wealth, and I want to make as much fucking money as possible. It's not because I'm greedy, but it's because, like, at the end of the day, if I make as much money as possible, then I could help out my friends, my family. If someone needs help, I could try to help. So I think there's just like connotation with like the rich just being greedy assholes. But if you have that negative belief that you're holding on psychologically, you're never going to get rich because you have a bad relationship with money. So, like,
yeah,
at the end of the day, I think that those thoughts need to be analyzed and checked. Because I know that I had a lot of people have this thought of like, oh, like money is the root of all evil. Only fucking rich people are assholes, and all this shit. So at the end of the day, if like you have those thoughts, you're stopping your own flow of money coming to you because you're being an asshole about money.
yeah. It's really interesting. I read this book probably a year ago called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. And it was really, I think it's a really good read for anybody who like wants to build a business or just like wants to increase their wealth. Because he told a lot of cool stories in there. Like I remember him talking about how people treated him very differently when he drove a beater car than when later in life he his business had grown, he got some money, and he would drive around like a nice Jaguar. And he's like, people automatically just started treating me so much shittier. Like they wouldn't let me merge in traffic. People flipped me off more. I'd like park somewhere and then somebody would walk by and like call me a rich asshole, even though like we hadn't interacted at all yet, just because
Yeah.
I was like wearing a suit, getting out of a nice car. He's like, it's a very interesting shift when you go from being somebody who didn't grow up with money to then building something and coming into money. You notice like how people automatically just perceive you as a dick. And
Mhm.
I thought it was really interesting. But I think like we had talked about before we got on the call how like these conversations almost always end up circling back to money in some way. But I think that like we're all trying to build businesses, and so much of content and business and ideas and stuff, like it does often boil back to like limiting beliefs around success and money and wealth. And like I'm even finding that now in building this new offer and putting it out there. I'm like bipolar. Like I've had days where I'm like, I think I'm charging too much for this. And then the next day I'm like, nah, I'm not charging enough. I'm like, I'm like a crazy person all of a sudden just because I'm putting something new out there and I'm like not sure of it yet.
Sure.
Um, so I think like money and wealth limiting beliefs kind of resurface as you like achieve new things in your business, unless you learn how to like kind of address it within yourself. Those same things will keep coming back up even as you make more money. So I'm curious for you guys, like when you were like Jeremy, you've recently put out a new offer. Mike, when you were building your offer, we talked about this a little bit last time with kind of like looking at what some other people charge and like comparing it to that. But did you guys ever have moments where you're like, I don't know if I'm charging too much or if I'm not charging enough?
I'll let Mike go first.
For me, I don't know. I guess I definitely had those moments. But I think I just figured it out from kind of like letting the market tell me, like getting on sales calls and kind of pushing pushing the boundaries. Like, where do you get that resistance? But also where do you not get resistance? Where is it like just like too easy, right? Because people talk about this and it's like, yeah, if you're like closing percentage is over, like, I can't remember if it's like 40, 50 or 60% or whatever. But yeah, like anything over like 40% even, a lot of people would tell you that you should be raising your prices, right? Because like
Mhm.
in industry standard for closing calls, like for, typical like service-based businesses that are kind of like higher ticket or whatever, it's probably around like 30 or 33%, right? So yeah, if you're closing like 60% of the deals, right, you're probably underpricing yourself, right? So I don't know. I've just kind of always, I think I've just done it by like testing the market and testing what people actually tell me on sales calls.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's smart. I also think you need to like reverse engineer how much work it's going to take you and time on each client and how many clients you could actually work with. So I think that ideal probably amount of clients would be like, I don't know, somewhere between 5 and 10 if you could get it right. And then finding the people that have the money to pay those higher ticket prices. Because I think what happens is like when you're scaling and you don't have as much money coming in, maybe we get this scarcity mindset and think that everyone else doesn't have money. When in fact, there's plenty of people that are super fucking rich, and $50,000 for them might be a rounding error. So like, I think it kind of just depends, like the rooms that you're going in and making sure that you're targeting the right people. But my new offer, I'm kind of landed at like 6 under 1 minute videos for like 2 grand. And that would take me 2 hours of my time to get on the call with them to like source out each video. We'll nail 3 videos on each call. But before that, I would do the creative brief and get all their backstories, everything about them, load that into Claude so that I'm not like just, oh, like tell me about a time. So I'm prepared ahead of time. Then 10 minutes before the call, I kind of figure out some narrative arcs and ideas. And then I capture it with them on the call live. Well, when I'm telling them, I don't know if you guys have heard this thing called Via Negativa, but it's kind of talking about what this is not. And what my offer is not is I'm not a video agency. I'm not doing B-roll. I'm not doing motion graphics. This is just purely like narrative driven video that's clipped, captioned, and that makes it so that their life is easy. Then you also need to reverse how long will this take them on their end? They're going to be sitting there fucking around with their camera, going like 100 different takes because they suck at what they do and they don't know how to, not because they suck at that moment. They'll get better over time. But I think that what they're buying is our expertise and these 10,000 hours that it took to figure out how to do this shit. And I always have to remind myself that, like, just because I could do something in a couple hours does not have anything to do with like the amount of value that it provides. Because what is one lead worth? Is it worth 10,000, 50,000, a million? It could be worth any amount of that, depending on the organization that you're going or the person that you're going after.
Yeah, and we've talked about before, there's a long-term return that comes with content too. Like I've talked to people before who like bought through my client and they said like, yeah, I've been watching his content for like 6 months before they bought. So like there is a long-term return with organic content that you might never directly see unless you ask that person like, hey, what made you decide to sign up or whatever. Um, but I'm curious, Jared, like when you've kind of run a few people through this now, how did you land on 6 clips for 2K?
Mainly because like I kind of like looked at how much time I don't think a founder wants to meet with me once a week, like for an hour. Founders are busy and they don't really have time, and they a lot of first, I want them to value content and see that content is powerful. So that's kind of like number one. Like if they don't think it's valuable, I'm already going to cancel them out. But if they think it's valuable and they could spare 2 hours a month to get this done, then what does that mean to their business? If they're, these videos that we create are on TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube Shorts, Substack. So then they're able to go there, repurpose all these videos, and they get all their content done that way. So that's kind of like the way I looked at it. But I'm going to be flirting with like another package that's like probably meeting like 3 hours a month, that type of thing, and then having some sort of anchor pricing where it's like, all right, like once I don't know, 4 grand or something like that, or so, I don't know the numbers yet, but like the idea is that like if you ever go to websites like Riverside, for example, they have like 4 or 5 different models. And a lot of them will be like, pick number 3 or whatever, when they know that that's kind of like the model that's going to make them the most money. So you kind of let the client decide. So as I'm building this out, I'm thinking about this anchoring thing in my mind because I think I told Mike this on a previous call, but I had a friend that closed like a $50,000 documentary, and he's like, either I could bring in the Avengers for 50 grand, or I could do it like Ghetto, and it'll be like 5 grand, and I'll hire some like film kid. So like
Hmm.
I think it like having those different options allows people, and then maybe the 2K doesn't look as big, right? Because maybe when 2K sits on its own, that's like, oh, that sounds pretty big. But if it's anchored next to a 5K or 6 grand or something like that, 2K suddenly in their mind looks small.
Yeah, it's like having like a kind of core offer, an upsell, and then a downsell almost.
What is your new offer, Kelsey? I think I remember seeing it in a post, but
Yeah. So what I'm playing around with for probably like I'll do this for a few people just to kind of put them through it and then find the flaws and the holes in it. But basically it's what I've already been doing for free and I'm just gonna start offering it to people. So I do a 90-minute interview with them where I kind of like research their business beforehand and I really look at it through the lens of like if I was considering working with this person, what questions would I ask? So I'll usually ask them like, what site would you send your clients to, or like where would you want to direct people if they were interested in learning about working with you? And they'll send me their link, and then I go check it out. And I really, like I said, I try to look at it through the lens of like, okay, I'm considering hiring this person. So what questions are coming to my mind? Because I found that those are the questions that usually get people saying like, oh, that's a really good question because they know like, oh, people ask me this. So that will be valuable content for them to have. So we block off 90 minutes. Interviews usually a little bit less than that. We kind of take some time to make sure that their like setup looks good and stuff and I could hear them. And then I generally from a 90-minute interview can get a month of content. And so I say around 20 clips. I don't want to promise 30 because I don't want it to be to get into like quantity over quality. So I say 90 minutes, one interview, you get a month of content. And to get more specific, we usually aim for 20, but we always go for quality over quantity. Um, and my initial thought because like I said, like I've been doing this already, and I was like, I think that I just need to build an offer around this and offer it to people as a service. But then like all this like imposter syndrome came up of like, am I charging too much? Am I charging too little? The first thing I thought was charging 1,500, and then I was like, no, I should do 2K. And then it's like my mind just going back and forth on like, is that too much? I might just offer it to a few people for 1,500 just to get a few people and like put them through it. But I'm still like,
I
I
think you
go
can get
back and
them.
forth.
I think you can give them way less clips. I think 20 clips is a lot because, like, if they have to go there and post them, that's like a lot of work for them. I think 20 clips could be like 6 grand almost. Like, it could be a lot of money. So I think that it's definitely because you have to think like people like video is more expensive than if you're going to go hire an agency. Like, they're going to be a lot more expensive for video than like ghostwriting probably because it's just more complex. Like, you got audio, you got video, you got editing. So, like, I wouldn't position yourself as, like, a Fiverr, like, kind of thing. I would kinda just, like, cut my advice. I don't know if Mike has a different advice, but I think 20 seems a lot, and it seems also like it's gonna be a lot of work for 20 videos. It's gonna how many hours would that take you to cut 20 videos?
Not necessarily, because we've been testing this for a while now and testing different AI tools, and that's why I said, like, I've learned that the editing process really gets streamlined by the quality of the questions. So it's more so like just me planning good questions because that makes the editing infinitely
Mhm.
easier. And between using like Riverside AI, Opus Clips AI, and we've also been working with a custom GPT to basically like put the transcript into the GPT and identify like repeated talking points and like identify kind of what the best moments are to focus on and then how to piece different parts together to make a good clip on that. So we've been figuring out how to streamline it with AI so that 20 clips, if we wanted to do that, wouldn't be like hours upon hours of work. But I agree. I've gone back and forth on that as well. I don't want to promise too many, but I think yeah, I don't know. I might just have to like test it on a couple people and see for myself and then be like, "Hey, yeah, less is better."
Because you would have, like, over, like, a if you have, like, 5 clients that have this package, that's 100 clips, and then you'd be making, like, 7 grand. So to me, the math doesn't work out. Like, it
Mm.
needs to be, like, a fair amount of money for you to, like and a fair amount of like, you're gonna burn out, I feel like, if you do that many. Unless
Well,
you're smart. Unless you're I don't know if you have thoughts, Mike?
yeah, like I don't know what Kelsey's charging for this. You don't have to say the number, but like, um, yeah, if you're charging a good amount, then anything does work, right?
She said 1,500, right? If I didn't hear you.
To
Oh,
2K to like 1,500 to 2K was the first thing that came to my mind. But I think it's too little, and I think I don't know. Like I said, I'm overthinking the fuck out of it.
Oh, for sure, we all do.
it's a good price to. It's definitely a appealing offer though at like 2K 20 videos. Um, yeah, Jeremy, is yours like 1,200 for 6 or something, or 8 videos or something?
No, my new offer's 2,000 for 6. And the way I look at
I love
it is that, like, I have 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. I have videos that have 500,000 views. They're not just paying because they're paying for my expertise and for me to show up on video with them and to basically pull the right stories out of them, use like Dakota's creative brief, and then I'll also hand that to them so that they're able to like use that for their ghostwriter so that that adds on to an extra bonus. And then like we're shaping like videos live. So like tell me about the time where you got bankrupt, you had these creditors coming after you, and then you had a 7-figure exit under a minute. So everything is like done right there, like live, and then I cut it. We agree on the videos there, so I'm not going back and forth through like hell. And I'm definitely not trying to commoditize myself to like. I think the most videos I'll do is probably like 12, because like at the end of the day, I know that if I'm cutting them, it's going to take me like an hour to go through the files, look at it for each session, to go in there and cut it to make sure that it's perfect, it's trimmed properly, the captions are correct, there's no spelling errors on anything. Like, so it takes a little time to make sure that the quality is good too, because you don't want to like have like a spelling error like on an author's name in the caption or something like that. So there is some like detailed work that needs to go into the thing too. And I think like I was saying before, they're also paying for like the expertise of like we're hanging out with like the top 1% of creators. These people are business people, right? Like, they're not in this game. So I think that I'd rather have less clients that see the value than more that don't. And another thought I had too is just having like a 6-month minimum. And I'm okay if they walk at the end of it, but I'd also give them a discount if they decided to stay. So like something along those lines where it's like, all right, like I'm not trying to make you dependent on me. I'm okay if you walk, but at the same time, like if you do want to stay, I'll incentivize you to stay.
Mhm.
So yeah, Kelsey, you mentioned like 90 minutes, 90-minute interview call, and you like to really like lean into like the questions that a prospect would be asking themselves, like if they're considering working with this person. And then Jeremy, it sounds like I know that you're both like very into like the storytelling aspect, right? But like Kelsey, are you planning on going like story heavy or more like authority heavy? And like, and then Jeremy on the flip side, like, do you think like full gap framework, like growth, authority, personality? How do you decide what kind of videos that you're going to make in the course of a month?
The
Yeah.
last one I made with my client was about like some NBA or some NFL guy that was like getting shit on for like 10 years. And then all of a sudden, like he had this one moment where he like caught like this ball and like won the game. So the video is about like he talks a lot about grit. So sometimes it's just also getting on the call and being like, I have a call with him at like 12 and I'll go on to Claude and just be like, hey, give me some ideas for like videos based on his creative brief. So since I already like detailed like the interview with him, I kind of already know a lot about his backstory. So I could just be like, all right, just like I would create content for myself that day, it'll kind of generate some ideas. I'll kick those around to him. And then I'll also just see what's going on right now in 2026, anything new happening. His partner's wife died recently and he had to go jump into the business. So we did like a video on that too about like being able to jump when you're ready and like needing to get the shit done. So I think a lot of it is just like they already have cool shit going on. It's just me going in there and then pulling out that narrative and being like, don't start here, start here. You're like bearing this too fast. So it's also like kind of like live coaching where you're like, all right, like some people have this thing where like, oh, I'm Jeremy Thone and I work at this company and I do this. Like, no, cut the preamble, get to the fucking point, and then go. Like, so that's kind of part of it too.
Mhm. Yeah, it's an art, like, knowing what moments you're looking for. I think the kind of strategy that you have, Jer, of using that creative brief almost as, like, the intro thing, like, it already gives you a bunch of questions to answer, and then you have this kind of bank of stories and stuff by them that you can, like, keep referring back to for ideas, so I do something similar. But to answer your question, Mike, I think it's a mix of, like, humanizing stories, like stories that just kind of show like their journey along the way, their like wins, failures, just like the journey of their business story. I think that can also become authority content, but I think asking them questions like a really simple one is like, what's a really common misunderstanding you find people have about your industry or what you do? And they almost always think of something right away. They're like, oh, people always assume that I, XYZ. So I think just getting them to talk about like things they've experienced in doing what they do can become really like organic authority content. Talking about like ways they've helped people, stories from their clients. That's always a good angle. But then also just like I think like Dakota teaches us a good framework with the gap framework of like growth content, authority, personal. I probably lean more into authority and personal. I think growth
Yeah.
stuff can come up if they just like refer to famous people or trends or something in their answers. Um, but I my kind of angle with this is building authority, growing content that makes their clients feel seen in some way. So either like builds authority around their business or gives people a glimpse into who they are as a service provider.
Yeah, the way I think about like the gap framework now, I like even so with my ghostwriting, it's like I also focus more on authority and personality. The growth in terms of like the more traditional way of like looking at it, where it's like leveraging some big name or something like this. Like a really good example would be even Dakota's thread from back in the day, like Stephen King's like 7 writing tips, something along that line, right? Where you're just like leveraging a big name. Like that stuff had like worked worked so well on Twitter for so long that I think that it became like a very like just the definitive sort of like growth content. It's like, yeah, leveraging a trend, a big name, and that. But personality content can be your growth content. Even like on LinkedIn, like authority content could be your growth content, right? So, but yeah, I found that like authority and personality, it tends to be what clients actually want because it's not getting too far away from who they actually are, like their expertise, their story. If you have to like leverage big names or maybe leveraging trends in the industry could be good, right? But yeah, so I didn't like. There's certain ghostwriting companies that their whole like methodology, their whole way for growing accounts was entirely based off of leveraging big names, and like I did not want to do that. Like that would be so difficult. I don't know how you actually sell that to a client. Like we're gonna have to talk about Warren Buffett and Bill Gates in order to grow you a brand on Twitter. Like that's a tough sell. I don't know.
Yeah.
First,
Yeah.
go ahead,
Go ahead,
Kelsey.
Jer.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say my husband did that. Like that was one of the first things he ever did online was he would grow Instagram accounts for people, and he would do it by reposting viral content and like obviously tagging the original creator, but you're just reposting viral content and then getting niche engagement. So he would pay similar accounts with bigger followers to engage with his content. And it worked. And he would grow accounts to like over 1 million followers. But then you learn that when you grow an account doing that, where you're basically borrowing authority, your options for monetizing that account are much, much lower. And I mean, there's maybe more ways to do it today. Like he's not doing that work anymore, but he's like, yeah, I just like I couldn't help people actually make money with their content. I could just help them grow a following, but at the end of the day, most people care less about growing a following as they do about actually growing their business. So,
Mhm.
yeah, there's many ways that you can grow a following, but it kind of comes down to if that's aligned with what you're actually trying to do in your business. But
I
anyway,
like what
go ahead.
I like what you guys had to say about authority and personality. I think that that's cool because the growth doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I will say that if you started a podcast on writing and you went and interviewed a bunch of other published authors, that would be kind of interesting. And a lot of them are really accessible. I hit up Matthew Dix from Storyworthy, and he was like, "Yeah, cool. Like, let's do an interview." It fell through the cracks, but I've interviewed some other authors that were pretty cool and got to learn from them. There's another guy that wrote a book called like The Persuasion Story Code. David Garfinkel. He's a pretty well-known author, super accessible. You can go like hit him up and he'll probably go live with you. So it's really interesting to see, and you could learn a lot from those people too, because then it's like a master class in like storytelling.
Mm.
Man, you gotta follow up with Matthew Dix.
I know I have him like we were going back and forth in emails, but it just never worked out. David Garfinkel is actually pretty active on LinkedIn and he's really cool. I learned about him through Parker Parker Worthy, I believe his name is, the guy that lives down in like Brazil that's kind of a writer with like a tattooed neck.
Yeah, yeah.
I,
Uh, David Garfinkel. Sorry, did you say he's a copywriter or?
Yeah, he's a copywriter, but he's got a couple books that are pretty well known. And I got one of them from. I think he talks a lot about like writing short stories and things like that. And you don't necessarily need like the hero's journey in order to like write a good story, because you know how like a lot of Hollywood sells like this whole like you have to create this whole world, and then there has to be this like this ask and da 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 da, and it's this whole series of events in order to tell like a good story. And he kind of just goes, no, that's not necessarily what's good for like quick social writing. You could do these like
Mhm.
micro narrative arcs, which kind of why I do at Video Ghost. Literally, that's what it is, like bankrupt to seven figures in like a 30-second thing. Because a lot of the times, I think a lot of founders will just go rambling on for like 2 years. Like my dad, for example, I'll talk to him and he'll tell like a long story short that's like 20 minutes and like burying like the lead like way into the story when he could have like just led with the cool part and then kind of like got to the point a lot quicker.
mhm. I think that's actually another point of the
Short,
value.
long.
Oh, there he is.
I'm back.
Okay. I was just saying, I think that's another part of like the value, like what you were speaking about before, Jared, with like the value these kinds of offers bring to business owners who want to make content is there is an art to learning how to take a long story and tell it concisely. Like there's whatever that saying is of like, I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long one. Because it's way easier to just dump out everything that you're thinking than it is to say something in a really concise and engaging way. And that's a big part of what we do is like taking people's stories, taking their opinions and their life perspectives and making that into a post with a point.
100%. You about to say something, Mike?
What
No,
oh,
but I'm back. My Wi-Fi is cutting in and out.
Yeah, it is interesting though. There is something to be said about like I don't know if you guys think about this too when you're writing. Sometimes I think about like what is the takeaway and then reverse engineer the hook, because or like start with the hook. I kind of start there and then kind of remove like anything that doesn't make sense to like the piece.
yeah. One of the
I
tools. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
I do start with the hook a lot of the time, the big idea, as opposed to like the lesson at the end. But sometimes I know though with the hook where it is going. So yeah.
Yeah. I think I told you guys that as we were kind of figuring out how to make this offer, we were going through Alex Hormozy's $100 million offers book, and there's like a
Mhm.
whole kind of exercise that you go through where you try to think of like, okay, this is the core offer, and this is every single problem people have around this topic that like my offer is helping people with. So it gets really granular. And he says a few times throughout the book, like, yes, this is going to feel like it's a lot of work, but just know that you're going to do this once and it's going to make you super clear on it. But you kind of start thinking like, okay, well, one problem that people might have or one objection people might have is like, I do this interview with you, I give you all these clips, but now it's up to you to post it. And so a friction point for some people might be like, well, how do I take those clips and actually turn them into posts? Like, what do I write with them? So it kind of just makes you think like, okay, how would I address that? Like maybe I could give them some kind of resource to know like how to write a simple post. And ultimately, like what I do with a lot of clips is kind of like you, Jer. I just think like when I'm watching this clip, what is the main point of this clip? Like, what's the main point? What's the takeaway? What's the like aha moment of the story? What is the point of me putting this out on social media? Like, why is it valuable to people in any way? And you can usually answer that in one sentence. What is the main point of this clip? So
Yeah.
at the very, very least, I think that some people do really overthink social media content in that they think like, well, I'm going to have to like figure out how to film it and then figure out how to edit it and then figure out what to write as a caption for it. And then I'm going to have to actually post it. But I think that captions get overthought a lot because there's a lot of platforms where like you don't see the caption until after. There's some like Substack and LinkedIn where you see the caption and then the creative, but then platforms like Instagram and TikTok and stuff are the opposite in that like you have to go seek out the caption. I think if it goes back to what I said before that if the clip is really good in that like there was a thoughtful question asked, you got a good response out of this person, then you might not need as much extra information in the caption as you think. And if you want to keep it really, really simple, you could just do like a line or two summarizing what is the main point of this post. And then maybe like where can people go find the rest of it or where would you want to send people to? It could be that simple.
I'll tell you a little thing about that. LinkedIn on mobile like makes it so that you have to like expand the caption. It's like it's not in the forefront. It's not the thing at the top with like the see more and that, right? It's just kind of like at the very it's like in the bottom left-hand corner of the video, right? Um but I actually think that from what I've seen from my experience with video is including like a caption that does kind of like summarize all the points from the video, it will improve it like big time because there are going to be certain people who just can't look at that video in that current moment and they do choose to just like read the caption. And then I think as well sometimes what they'll do is they'll look to see what you said anyway, the people who really do get immersed, and then that will keep them on the video even longer. So yeah, like for like absolutely optimizing to its max, you'd want to have a fully written caption. But yeah, like, are you what did you arrive on, like, in that regard? Like, are you going to help them with the writing part of it, or
I mean, this is where, like I said, I was thinking about, like, you could have, like, a core offer, an upsell, and a downsell, because there's certain parts
Mhm,
of
mhm.
ghostwriting and stuff that I just know I don't really want to get into. I don't think
Yeah.
I want to necessarily always be writing the captions for people and, like, send it to them to get approved and stuff. I've just done that for so long, and I really wanna focus on the interviews and asking really good questions. So I think what we're probably gonna do is just, like, put some kind of, like, one pager together or something to be able to give people a resource of, like, this is how easy writing captions can be for your post. Like, if there's somebody that they're like, I want you to help me with this and help me get these clips, and I'll post them, but I'm gonna overthink what to write with them. I think the most valuable thing to give them there would just be, like, a simple resource to go to show them how they don't need to overthink it. So, like, I could even, like, one of the things I was thinking about is as we export those clips, we could literally name it, like, name the file what the main point of the post is. And then they could write a one-liner on, like, what is the main point of this post, and then post it. Because in the beginning, I think it's gonna be about, like Jeremy said, it's not like I'm trying to create a service where these people are forever dependent on me. I really wanna help people, like, get their own kinda content machine going and see how valuable content can be to their business. So even if one day they decide to, like, keep doing it on their own, they've learned some systems around making good content. You know what I'm
Your
thinking?
core offer should maybe just be like, maybe you just give them the hook for the video.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then, like, that basically sounds like what you were kinda saying, like, the title is just the hook, right?
Yep.
Because then it might be easier, like, easy for them at that point to just write the body that just expands
Yep.
on what the actual video is about. But then, yeah, like, if you're going beyond that and every video has, like, a well thought out, like, fully crafted, uh, body and all this, and then there's a whole approval process, like, it sounds like that's what you're trying to get away from, and, like, I totally understand it because the writing part of it is, it's tough, and that's where, like, the back and forth, happens, and the approval process and all that, right?
Mhm.
Whereas video, like, I know the video aspect's tough too because you gotta capture them actually saying the story in its best light, right? But at least that's something you just do on that interview call, and then it's like, then you're just passing it off to the editor, or you're doing the editing yourself, right?
Yeah.
One thing to think about too is I came across this week, that idea of via negativa. It's this idea of like what my thing is not. And then you list out all the things that your offer is not. So not captions, not back and forth bullshit, da 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 da. So people are very clear when they see it. And then on the opposite, this is what it is. So then it kind of removes what you don't want to do. And it's also being clear to the market what you're not doing so that they have clarity. But then you're focusing on what you are actually doing, and I think that that's something that I've been playing with because I'm like, all right, I'm not a ghost. I'm not a video agency. I'm not some Fiverr dude that's running clips. I'm
Mhm.
like an actual creator that has an audience that's helping you do the same thing. Right. So like
Mhm.
I think that when you start thinking of yourself like as a one of one instead of like a like commodity, so to speak, like I think that that's when I start thinking of myself like a commodity, I start thinking like, or what is the price for video? Is it like $50? And like that's a terrible way to think because then all of a sudden you're like, you're thinking in terms of like only like you got to think in terms of like the transformational things that they'll get out of the videos. For example, like I had like a client that's only on podcast number 14, and he's already closed a couple shipments. He's in the freight industry and he's already done a couple shipments for this lady that has a natural tea drink. And this is a very crowded industry. It's super like competitive. It's very commoditized. It's literally the name of his show is called Race to the Bottom because that industry is literally a race to the bottom. And he was able to get clients from his podcast because he interviewed the lady and then built the relationship. And then what do you know? You built a relationship with someone. It happened to me too with the podcast I created at a company that I used to work for. I got a job from just an old person that came on the show. So I think that it's interesting. I also recommend that too, because the more people you get in front of, the wider your audience becomes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think right now the way that I'm thinking about it is like there's definitely more refinement that's needed. And after talking to you guys, I do feel like I'm leaning more into like, yeah, maybe 20 clips is a lot. Um, but I kind of want to just get somebody and put them through it and really see where the friction points are when I am doing this for a paid client.
Mhm.
And then just know that I'm gonna like refine and adjust it from there and keep trying to make it better. Cause I mean, I was already doing it anyway, and I'm gonna keep doing it. And I want to figure out how to like keep making it more valuable while having to spend as little time at my desk as possible.
I think one thing that you could do, I was thinking about it for myself actually too, Kelsey, is you could, like I was mentioning, get on Substacks with other people that are already on Substack that don't have live video
Yeah.
and hook it up to YouTube like we already have going with this thing. And that becomes like, all right, we're gonna go live for like a month. And we're gonna tie this to YouTube and then we're gonna look at the traction that happens from YouTube to see which videos pop and which ones don't, because that's a discovery engine. And then what we'll do is I'll interview you at the end of that, get your creative brief, and we'll continue doing this process after we have a little bit of test data. Because at the end of the day, I think a lot of people are like, well, which videos are gonna work and which ideas are validated? And that's kind of like something that I don't know of anyone that else can offer, like an actual validation piece to see which content's actually working. That's a
Mhm.
pretty powerful thing if you think about it.
But in that case,
Mm.
are you posting those clips on your YouTube and seeing which ones
No,
perform
I'd
better?
want them to put it on theirs. I would ask them to create the live, add me to it, and then I become like their co-host essentially, where I'm asking them questions about their business. And I'll tell them like, look, this is just data that we're looking for in this first month. We're going to go live 4 times for an hour a month. We're going to push this to YouTube, to their discovery engine on Shorts, see what happens. This is going to go some basic data. We'll get back on the call in a month. We'll do a brief and talk about like what happened and like how we want to pursue our strategy, and then go into your normal process from there. I thought about that, or even just doing it on a regular basis might be cool for like the right person. I
Mhm.
definitely think there's some value there.
I like that. Like one of them is kind of like the test call where you put that content out to the market and you see what kind of feedback you get, and then you do another call in that same month where it's like the polished interview where you like expand on those ones that did the best,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Oh, and you could even, I mean, you could bring ideas to the table for the live call, but you could also keep it more like free form. It like kind of like what we do, where we just go to all these different topics, right? Because some good things always tend to come out of it. We didn't know like that we would end up talking about, for example, no press is bad press, different things like that, right? So yeah.
Yeah. I guess with that particular offer, it would be suited for people who are on Substack, right? For them to be able to do the lives.
It would or you could bring them on LinkedIn. You could just be like, "Hey, I know that the only caveat is I think that you have to have like 11 followers, so it could take like a little bit of like it, like when I joined Substack, I like had to be like, "Hey, Substack dev, let me go live," and like I was like they would block me from going live because I didn't have any followers.
Mhm.
So there's that little bit of hurdle, I suppose, in the beginning. Not it's solvable if they have an audience, but the idea would be like, all right, like pull them from LinkedIn, have them sign up for Substack, and then have them create that YouTube account, have it connect the thing for them, and be like, hey, this is just our test. This is our validation piece. And then that becomes, okay, these ideas are validated. Let's expand on them more in our video clips. And for YouTube, I think maybe I haven't started thinking, some other people have been like, well, why don't you do like mid-length clips too? And that could be something to explore. Or
Mhm.
maybe it's like more than a minute clip. Maybe it's like a 5 minute clip or a 20-minute clip where it's kind of you going in there and doing something for them. And I think that the part that's powerful about that live thing is that a lot of people want to go like a lot of people don't have like friends that they can go and do this like we have in our group or whatever. I value you guys because it's hard to meet people that are doing the same shit as you and that are comfortable enough to go live or whatever. So at the end of the day, I think that like that's also a service to them because you're making them look good. You're a really good interview. I've been interviewed by you, Kelsey, and you ask really good questions. So I think that people will value that in itself is valuable for a founder because it's like, all right, this person's making me look good publicly. And then at the end of the day, it's like, and a lot of times too, they don't have the experience. that no one's begging down the ones that are quiet and invisible. No one's like big or like, going to their door asking them for interviews because they're quiet.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Speaking of which, what do you guys think? Are we gonna do our live on that, on that event next week, or what are you guys leaning toward?
I'm traveling. I'm free on Friday. Are you guys around Friday by chance? Next Friday?
Oh, that's right. Because wait, the 28th. What does that fall on? Like, is that a
Wednesday.
I think that's
Wednesday?
is it a Wednesday?
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I guess we're all doing that roundtable, right?
I need to double check my schedule. I'm traveling to Portland for a divorce settlement. So
Oh,
if I could do it, if I'm available to do it, I'm going to join, but I'm not 100%.
Nice. Yeah, I
cool.
think I'm probably gonna do it, Mike, so, maybe I'll see both you guys there, but, yeah, we can plan to do another live next Friday if you guys are available.
Absolutely. What time works for you? Is like 9 a.m. Pacific all right for y'all? My Texas accent just came out.
Yeah. Yeah. That should be fine. Um, yeah. That should be fine.
Okay. Is that all right with you, Kelsey, or do you want a different time?
9 AM PST will be 11 AM for me. Yeah, I can do that.
Alrighty. Cool, you guys. Well, thanks everyone that's on the call, and thanks you guys for both your awesome thoughts as always.
Yeah, these are
Great.
always fun.
Awesome.
All right. Peace.
See you
Alright,
guys.
see you guys next week.